cap gunshot. Who won best fall when they came calling for the kid? Your teepee tall in urban sprawl when they came calling for the kid. So let your voice ring out as your spirit soars. Cowboys and Indians whoop and roar, and let your soul before you light your path and guide you.
What a beautiful voice. Isn't that gorgeous? Absolutely gorgeous. That's Clara Rose, Calling for the Kid. And it's an unusual song. I'll explain something about it later on. She gave us a permission to play it. It's a really beautiful piece. Really, really pleased to honored to have Clara Rose, the songs on our show. It's Friday. Welcome to the Sustack Plans Chat Club. It's 1 o'clock, so we're live in the UK from 1 to 1:30 every Friday. I'm delighted to say we've got Reggie Johnson all the way from Fort Worth, Texas.
Howdy.
Howdy, Reggie, and howdy, Wayne Denner, Warren Point, County Down.
Good afternoon, guys. Delighted to be back.
Yes, indeed. We've got a busy session today. Surprise, surprise. We try to squeeze as much as we can into our weekly 30-minute chats. And we are going to cover a fair bit, but everything that we talk about is we put links into every single topic and the music on the show notes on prsmith.org/blog. So we're going to be talking about today and going to open up with something shocking. This is, I'm going to ask you to leave. And this is something that I saw on camera happening during a very senior ex-BBC interviewer interviewing the Facebook whistleblower, Sarah Wynne Williams. And we've talked about her book before, and this is shocking stuff. So we're going to bring you up to date on that. Then going to talk about AI success, a little trick for you, or a little insight for you to start with workflows to increase the likelihood of your AI success. And then after that, we're going to look at question mark, AI liberating or strip mining humans. What's going on there? And then we've got your brand stolen via WhatsApp. Now, we've had this warning from Wayne previously, but we've had updates and some bad news in there. Lots of good news we're going to give you as well. So we'll bring up to date with that. And then something we've come across, which is feedback failing for one or two reasons. And this is kind of common sense stuff, but in the heat of battle and AI and innovation and ethics, sometimes we forget it. So we've started to add that in there. I've asked Reggie to do something about this beautiful little video we came across, Life with Claude. Quite interesting and quite futuristic of what's ahead of us, marketers and business people, in terms of using AI. Now we're juggling what to do with the parental app that Wayne has developed. I want him to keep us up to date with it, but he's good saying to me, I've got some even bigger news for you. So we're going to try and get all that in there, and then finally finish with a really positive piece about IKEA replacing customer service with a bot, or lots of bots, but they're not sacking anybody, and they're being very, very clever from a marketing perspective. So we'll tell you all about that. Let's kick off with the first piece, which is this shocking session that I came across. Now, this is Emily Maitlis. Now, Emily Maitlis is possibly world renowned as a former BBC journalist and reporter, presenter, the lot. She did the famous or infamous Prince Andrew interview where all the beans were spilt, or a lot of the beans were spilt. So she's very, very senior. She's left to set up a thing called the News Agents, which is recommended. Anyways, she is interviewing supposedly Sarah Wynne Williams. Now, that probably rings a bell. This is Sarah Wynne Williams, the book we've talked about last year, this year. It's such a great read, and it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. But so she's about to interview her, and she's this happens on screen. You'll see it if you go and look at the video. So she's been silenced by Meta. So she's in the studio with Emily Maitlis, who's like very senior, and also she's also with another author, Amy Wallace. And then this happens. Emily Maitlis says, "I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave because we've, legally there are restrictions which we've been alerted about, and you're not allowed to speak about your book. You're not allowed to be interviewed about your book. You can't be in the studio while there's a discussion going on around any action or anything that's taking place." And then Emily Maitlis says, "I can't. In order for us to have this conversation, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," says Emily Maitlis. And now it's just the weirdest thing. And you can see the look on Sarah's face. I kind of think she's in tears, but she probably knew this was coming, And then as she gets up and she leaves, she says, "Okay." And she walks off out of the studio. Emily Maitlis turns around and goes, "What the F word is going on? Because this doesn't feel normal," she said. So she says this to Amy Wallace, who's the co-author of the award-winning book that was written with the late, great Virginia Giuffre, and who was a now deceased Jeffrey Epstein victim. And their award-winning book was called Nobody's Girl. So they have Amy Wallace, the co-author of that, in there. And she takes up the reign, and what she has to say about what Meta are doing to Sarah Wynne Williams, it was very cleverly done, I have to say, because she was free and legal to say what she thought was going on, and she doesn't pull her punches, let me tell you that. It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace, in my opinion. I'm sure legally you have to be careful about saying this kind of stuff. But then what happened now was we had the instruction, or the perception, the description of what was going on was beautifully delivered here, because what they actually did was very, very clever. They actually got Amy Wallace in the studio at the same time. Now, Amy would have been in the audience for the award-winning thing, for which Sarah Wynne Williams was a speaker. So Sarah Wynne Williams, not allowed to speak about her own book, spoke about this other wonderful book. And it kind of gave everybody an insight to what the other book was about, but it shadows what Sarah Wynne Williams' book is about. So this is what Sarah said. She said, "The people told us that they'd grown rich and powerful in the certainty that they would never be held to account." Now she's talking about people in general. She's not talking about her book. So they developed every weapon that money can buy against a woman whose only weapon was her voice. Now she's talking about this other book, The Nobody's Girl by Amy Wallace and Virginia Giuffre. So they tried to exhaust her, referring to the late Virginia Giuffre. And Sarah Wynne Williams says they tried to exhaust her to make the cost of speaking so high, so relentless, so total, that eventually the spirit gives out before the truth does. And in trying to silence a woman, she added at that time, tells the world that the truth those people are trying to hide must be very dangerous indeed. The truth that Meta and others are trying to hide must be very dangerous indeed. So she goes on to say, "Let me say something about what it costs to witness and to write. It can cost everything." So this is powerful stuff, and that was in her speech at the award-winning. So she wasn't breaking any of the Meta sort of restrictions they put upon her. And she finishes by saying, it's a speech about bearing witness, about when you live in times which are dominated by these powerful networks and these powerful elites, it can often feel like there isn't much you can do. Now, she then finishes this, she says, "You can often feel powerless. And at those times, I think there is power in bearing witness and in speaking the things that are not normally spoken. And Virginia did that," said Wynne Williams. And it was great. Now, next week, I'm going to tell you what Amy Wallace said when she picks up the angle, and she can speak freely. And what she has to say about what Meta are doing is shocking. And I'm going to save that because I'm conscious of time. So next week, I'm going to talk about what Amy Wallace has to say about Meta's restrictions and curbing of releasing, in my opinion, is a very well written document, kind of capturing what went on behind, what goes on maybe still. Okay, so we're gonna park that until next week. Now,
we did get a comment I would just want to throw out there,
please.
talking about how after seeing the News Agents episode the other day, that NDAs should be made illegal worldwide. Now, that's non-disclosure agreements a lot of times for the big tech companies in particular, and places like that, the larger companies that have a lot of reputational risks from insiders and whistleblower trouble in the past. If an employee gets fired or let go, in order to get their severance package, when they're looking at unemployment, they are forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And that's kind of what the center of this is where they're saying she signed a non-disclosure agreement when we fired her, and so she's not allowed to write this book. And so anyway, one of our I believe it's Robin who said that. Sorry, it doesn't.
Oh, good one. Yeah, thank you, Robin.
Pointed out that this is a serious thing, is that people being forced under financial duress to sign non-disclosure agreements, and then it can come back when they are a whistleblower. And I don't know if we'll see a whole class of like protected whistleblower laws, kind of like we have mandatory reporters now for sexual abuse crimes and that kind of a thing, where there's protections for the person blowing the whistle that could supersede NDAs. It would be interesting to see if non-disclosure agreements become unenforceable under certain conditions.
Yeah, and I think this is beyond an NDA. Well, it probably was an NDA in it as well. But this is what Meta said, just to clarify this point on the NDA. But thank you for raising it. It says, this is from Meta spokesperson, told the News Agent, which is Emily Maitland's program, quote from Meta, they're referring to Sarah now, this former employee is trying to use the legal process to sell books, which an arbitrator already ruled broke the agreement she signed with the company when she accepted a large severance payment years ago. Her book is divorced from reality, disparaging and riddled with false claims. Now, they would say that, wouldn't they? So probably an NDA was wrapped into that kind of final sign-off. Okay, we're gonna go back to this next week, but thank you folks for raising that, because it's abhorrent, it's unacceptable, and we're seeing it. So, we are of the opinion that we'll stand up for stuff when we see this sort of thing. Okay, now wanted to move on from that because being a bit more positive. Reggie has kind of spotted something about improving the likelihood of success, AI success, by starting from a different perspective.
Yes. Well, so this was a post on LinkedIn by Brij Kishore Pandey, an AI architect and AI engineer, and he pointed out that most AI projects fail before the model is even picked. And the interesting reason is actually quite simple. It's because the team starts with the model rather than the workflow. They start with the model, they start with the AI before the workflow. Because what happens when you do that is you say, this is our AI model, or even as simple as saying, we're going to use AI. Then you wrap the workflow around that, and you're not optimized for success. You're optimized for trying to make the model useful in the workflow. And when you're gearing your workflow towards making one of the pieces of the workflow look useful, you're not optimized for success, if that makes sense. So really what you need to do is create the workflow first, and then see where does the model or which model fit into it in a way that is efficient and can help bring about success. He gives a number of we'll share the link, and so you can look at this yourself, because he's got a number of pieces of helpful information. He gives 7 questions to answer first, which I'll go through quickly. 1 is the input, what starts the workflow. 2 is context, what information does the AI need. Number 3 is decision, what should the AI classify, summarize, or generate. 4 is tool or action, what system does it touch. 5 is validation, how is the result checked. And number 6, one of the most important ones, human approval, where is judgment required, human judgment. And number 7 is output, what does success look like. And he says if you can't answer these in plain language, the model will not save you. So a lot of times AI failure is a workflow problem, not an AI problem. And I think that's also touches to the subject we've talked about previously, which is that a lot of people assume AI is the answer. We have CEOs that are smitten by the message of the tech bros, and they are saying, we're going to use AI, we're going to implement AI without really stopping and thinking, is AI an important part of our workflow, or is it not a good fit, or are we just trying to, be a hammer and everything starts to look like a nail? Question. There's more to it. We'll share the link, and you can see a little bit more about this.
That's very neat and tidy. I like that way of thinking. It kind of brings us back to governance, doesn't it? Like what's your approach? And I like number 5 and 6 in particular: 5, validation, and 6, human judgment. Next week, I'm going to give you a shocker from North Korea that just came in today, but we haven't time for it today. But next week on the lack of governance, AI governance by who's the biggest coffee company out there?
Starbucks. Yes.
Starbucks in Korea.
That's an amazing story.
Oh my goodness. So it's over next week, but completely the whole nation went on the rampage and boycotted and protested and went berserk, and sales nosedived, and the CEO resigned, and whoever's left on the board has to keep bowing in front of TV screens apologizing. It's an absolute disaster. But that came from an AI generated concept for a new ad campaign, and nobody thought to validate this, and nobody thought to chuck it around with humans to see, how might this pan out. It's an extraordinary example. So I really like numbers 5 and 6. Give us the top. Give us 1 to 7 again, one more time, please, Reggie. Yep.
All right. So just real quick, you ask these questions: input, what starts the workflow? Context, what information does the AI need? Decision, what should the AI classify, summarize, or generate? Tool or action is number 4. What system does it touch? Number 5 is validation. How is the result checked? Number 6, human approval. Where is judgment required? And number 7, output. What does success look like?
Yeah, I mean,
determine those ahead of time.
That's just logical, good practice. Okay, that's great. Thanks very much for that, Reggie. I wanted to mention something before we get on to Wayne with some upsetting news, personal upsetting news for old Wayne. Looking glum there, but not good news. We'll get to that in just 1 second. This is a quickie about AI liberating or strip mining humans. I just saw this infographic, and it simply said this: who do you agree with? And the Sam Altman there, a picture of him, and the quote from him is, we're deploying responsibly developed AI to liberate humanity from menial labor and usher in an era of unparalleled creativity and abundance. Folks, happy days. Meanwhile, Naomi Klein. Does Naomi Klein mean anything to anybody, that name, Naomi Klein? I think she wrote that amazing book all those years ago about branding, brandless. I think it was a zero brand, or I have it on the shelf there somewhere. I'll dig it out. But Naomi Klein, who's categorized as an author and social activist, this is what she has to say about AI. You ingested the entire written output of human civilization without consent, without compensation, and without credit, to build a system whose primary commercial application is eliminating the jobs of the people whose work you consumed. You're not liberating human creativity, you're strip mining it and sending it back at a markup, whilst calling the theft training data, quote unquote. That's really in your face, that one. We'll stick a link to it so you can have a look at it. But let's go on to Wayne here. Wayne, now you've got lots to talk about, but I have to ask you, bad news on your WhatsApp. Tell us what's the WhatsApp thing again? You talked about last week. Just gives a reminder.
Yeah, big news this week across all of the media outlets that Meta is now going to assign usernames to people's WhatsApp accounts. So this is coming in under the guise of privacy, and we'll come back around to that in a couple of moments. But the guise is that this is going to be a more private way than sharing your number. I mean, it makes sense on the surface. If somebody adds you to a WhatsApp group and there are lots of other people in that WhatsApp group, everybody can see your number and random people can message you. So the idea is now that they're going to take the number part away and assign you a username. So this is going to be a phased rollout, and this is really important for people to note. The rollout has already started. It's available currently in Ireland and the UK. I'm sure it's available in other parts of the world. But in order to be able to secure your username, you have to update your WhatsApp on your phone to the latest version. So if you go into your WhatsApp account right now and you don't see the ability to reserve your username or assign your username, it's because you probably haven't updated to the latest version of WhatsApp, or it just maybe hasn't rolled out in your country. Now, it rolled out for me in the past couple of days, and I went right away in to secure my brand name, which is Wayne Denner. Gone. It is gone. Somebody has taken my username. It's gone. Now, I looked at this through a couple of different lenses. You can go in and type in the username you'd like. Mine was gone. Then I thought, maybe because I use that username on WhatsApp, or not on WhatsApp, on Instagram, then I'll just log in through my Instagram account. And you would have thought that because that username is assigned on another Meta product, Meta would have reserved it for me. It would make sense for them to do that, but they didn't do that. I tried to secure it through my Instagram login, gone. So although I have the username on Instagram, which is another Meta product, somebody has, unfortunately for me, got in before me and taken my username and are likely squatting on it at the moment. Or there's no appeals process.
Yeah, it may be. I mean, there are 4,000 Paul Smiths in the UK alone. Maybe there's 4 or 5 Wayne Denners.
Yes, it could be that. It could be that as well. And I did digging around before in relation to my own name, and there's not too many knocking about the place. There's one or two, but they weren't really big in the social media space.
So we've all got to check our WhatsApp, and being very crude, anybody who doesn't know, how do you
very, very, very simple. You take out your WhatsApp account, you take out your WhatsApp onto your phone, you go into your WhatsApp account, you tap on your little profile icon at the bottom right hand side. Once you do that, you're going to go down to account. Once you tap on account, you should see username under your account. If you don't see username there currently, you need to update likely to the latest version of WhatsApp, and then it will appear in there, and you simply just tap on username and you create your username from there. Right. Hopefully yours will be available. Hopefully Reggie's will be available. Mine is gone. And I even tried the reverse. I tried Denner Wayne, gone.
Oh dear. All right, sorry to hear that. Okay, so I'm going to ask you about, we'll come back time along. I feel we might run out of time today, but I want to hear about your kids app. So I'm going to come back to you about that. And if there's anything more updates on that, we can post it on the show notes, prsmith.org/blog.
Sure.
But the WhatsApp thing is concerning. Okay.
We'll share the link in the blog and the PR Smith blog as well, because I've got a step-by-step guide on how people can find that sort of stuff and take care of their domain name or username.
That's great. That's lovely. Okay. Now here's a very basic one that Samuel Knight posted. Very interested in this, about feedback, of any type of feedback, whether it's feedback on your AI, feedback on your marketing, feedback on anything. Generally speaking, his experience has said that feedback fails for one of two reasons. Number one, it's either too rare, or number two, it's too vague. So too vague means, well, number one, if it's too kind of what would you say? It's if it gets saved, if people are kind of saying, we'll look at it now, or we'll build in the feedback at the end of the year. Well, it's too late, or at the end of the quarter, it's too late. Maybe at the end of the week, it's too late. So, how do we avoid that? And if it's too vague, then, it gets confusing. So what Sam Knight has come up with is a little framework called SBI. And I like it because it seems to work. S for situation, B for behavior, I for impact. So situation is when you're giving feedback, be specific about the situation. Where and when did this happen? Be very specific. In yesterday's client call, not recently this happened. Yesterday in the call you had with clients. So you kind of frame it in the situation. Then behavior, what they actually did, and that's observable, not your interpretation of their intent, but what's observable. I'll give you an example in a second. And then impact, what happened as a result, to the clients, the team, the outcome. And those three steps can really bring feedback to life. So if somebody said to you by way of feedback, good work this quarter, well done, that's not really very helpful. So more specifically, if somebody said in yesterday's client call, when you push back on the timeline, it gave the client confidence. We understood the scope properly. So that tells them, the SBI of it, really. So good job with the client. It's too vague. It's not clear. But if you say in yesterday's call, you challenged the timeline, that's the behavior, and the impact was it gave the client confidence that we understood. So now, what the question is, is it likely that they will repeat this behavior? Yes, if it's good feedback like that, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Whereas if you say, good job with the client, it's not necessarily more likely that it's going to reoccur. So that's a nice simple test. Okay, now I wanted to move on to something a bit more jolly. I thought it was relevant to us marketers, but also short, snappy, and interesting. And this is life with Claude. Reggie.
So there was a commercial for Claude by Perplexity that had a guy who was quickly leaving the house and said, "I'm late for training." And his wife says, "But I thought you had a lot of work to do today." And he says, "Yeah, but I've got Claude." And he goes and he gets in his car and he gives some voice commands to his phone. And you can see he's talking to his computer at home. And he gives it a whole bunch of instructions for a whole day's worth of work to create some designed item, whether it's a designed app or website. And it's a multi-step workflow, and the computer is working on. He says, essentially, put it all on my desktop at the end of the day. It has to be this, this, and this. And then he gets to the gym where he is all day long training for boxing. And that's evidently his hobby. So the idea is, because he's got Claude, he's able to tell his computer to do his work while he goes and plays. And then he gets back home at the end of the day, and his file is waiting for him on his desktop, and he just sits back and relaxes. It's a great ad, and I think it really highlights like what a lot of people imagine AI can do. I will say I did have one potential flaw I see in the logic, and that is, if you're a business owner, are you going to hire someone to give a bunch of prompts to an AI at the beginning of their day and then play all day?
Well, we might be moving to the 4-day week, 3-day week, 1-day week, where you do all your work in 1 week or 1 day, because you don't need a full week to do it, and you get paid accordingly, perhaps by results and not by time put it.
I'd love to see that. I just think right now we're in a place where people are saying, hey, if we can do this with a bunch of prompts at the beginning of the day, let's fire everybody and just have the manager give the prompts. And because obviously the gentleman's got a lot of expertise. He knows exactly what he's prompting it to do. And it'll be interesting to see what the future brings. Can AI help empower workers like this to have more free time? Can workplaces adapt to allow for a more balanced lifestyle? Or will the people who already have all the money and power, the business owners, be the only ones that can make more money by firing workforces and using AI to do everything? So you have that like one person billion-dollar corporation and lock everybody else out.
I wonder, did he apply your 7 steps for workflow, success? Maybe behind the scenes, or the skill of knowing good prompts, all of that come to play. But I'm sure it'd be enhanced by behind the scenes, your 7 steps in the workflow for AI success. That's great. We're just about to run out of time. I'm going to ask Wayne, would you tell us, part of the problem is getting our stuff out. So have you an update there for us?
We have good news. From next week, we are launching a podcast, which means the live version of the podcast is going to be repurposed, and it's going to be available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you like to access podcasts, even Amazon. It's going to be available. So if you miss one of the episodes of the live, we hope you don't, you'll be able to tune into the podcast. So make sure whenever the link becomes available for the podcast, you hit the subscribe button. And as soon as we upload the show after the live, you get the notification and you can come in and listen to it.
That's great. Thank you very much. Good news. So in addition to looking at it again on LinkedIn, or looking at YouTube, or looking at Facebook, there'll be the proper podcast. They're available if you prefer that route. That's wonderful. Okay. Next week, will you come back and tell us about the parental app, how it's going, and so on?
I will.
Yeah, because I think we need to remind people about it. It's an important piece of work. Okay, we're going to finish with one quick story, 1-minute story about IKEA and AI efficiency and AI effectiveness. And this is simple stuff, but they've built a chatbot that has taken over 8,500 customer service roles. Shock, sad day, black day for many, you might say. But it's not that story about people losing their job. It's actually what they've done is IKEA have done the opposite. although the bot is saving a lot of money, you could quantify it as that, and response times have become much quicker, and there's a value they can put on that as well. Normally this would end in layoffs. It doesn't with IKEA. They are quite a progressive company. So this is what it did. It looked at what customers kept asking for. And here's the great question. They asked customers, what do you want that a bot could not deliver? Bang. What a great question. I collect great questions. That is a beauty. That is an absolute peach. And it's good marketing practice to listen to feedback anyway, whether it's NPS or ratings reviews or questions like that. Invaluable if you've got a relationship with your clients. So what came back was, they want real interior design help. So what do they do with that information? They've trained all those staff. 8,500 employees are now able to give premium design advice over the phone and on video, walking customers through layouts, furniture combinations, storage, you name it, styles, fashions. What a good use that is. And they estimate that this is worth 3.3% of the total revenue that they brought in the interior, the design skills. And they projected that it'll be worth 10% of the revenues by 2028. So there's a net win all around. Well done, IKEA. We take our hat off to you. Okay, it is just gone past 1 o'clock. Dear me, I'm sorry about that. I have to, on behalf of the guys here, wish you all farewell. As always, with the show notes on prsmith.org/blog. We're going to play out with Calling for the Kid by Clara Rose, this beautiful singer from not too far from you, Wayne, your neck of the woods. So this is Clara doing her Calling for the Kid. And by the way, Wayne, have a look at the video when we post the video to this. It has undertones about screen addiction in there. And I've discussed it with her. I went back to Clara and said, was this for real? And we picked that up. Yeah. So
Check it out.
all the best, folks. Have a great weekend.
Who won best fall when they came calling for the kid? Your teepee tall in urban sprawl when they came calling for the kid. So let your voice ring out as your spirit soars. Cowboys and Indians whoop and roar, and let your soul before you light your path and guide you as it comes calling for the kid.
See you guys.